Okay. All right. Okay.
And the time is?
The time is 7:07. And I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay. Okay, I hope this will work. Okay, you see the agenda, I hope.
Yeah,
Okay.
looks just like mine.
Yeah, I'm making my two. How do I diminish it? What did I do here?
Mine is a color and it doesn't have copy. Mine is a copy, it doesn't have color, I should say.
Okay. I'll get to scroll on this here.
Take it back. It doesn't look just like mine.
Yeah, let me put it back to normal size.
No, that logo in the middle.
No, that is.
What is that?
It's highlighted, and that's why it comes up that way.
Okay, let's see if I. Where is the scroll button here?
There we go.
How do I can't find the scroll button here.
How about push the down arrow?
I'm pushing the down arrow. Well, it doesn't work.
You're in protected view, number 1.
Okay. Activate.
Just click on enable editing. Oops.
Now we have a full picture of Ellen, okay?
I'm so unhappy. Let's try this again. Okay, there's the screen.
Now we take attendance.
I'm working. Good. I got it, gentlemen. Thank God. So I call the meeting to order at 7:09. Okay, and the roll call.
Here.
Brian Allen.
Here.
Ralph Croy.
Here.
Sid Gold. He's here. Scott Margarchian is not here. Let me call Scott.
Wait a minute. There's 4 people.
Oh.
Who else is here? Is he in attendees?
Let me go check.
It's a phone call, 212.
Let me see. Now, when I'm in the share screen, I can't get into my options.
Can the caller unmute and let us know who it is?
I'm gonna go out of the share screen option.
They have their hand up.
Okay. There we go. Who's there? Can you talk? You're on.
Yeah, this is Glenn Bailey. I'm just listening in. Sorry for any confusion.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So Glenn is. You're the attendee, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to take your hand down, or? Okay. So we'll go on with the agenda here. Let's Now,
Okay, you're back.
I'm out of the screen. Brian, can you run the agenda? Read it. This is too complicated. My computer is acting up again. I can read item number 4. Or item number 3, public comments from non-committee members. Glenn, is there anything you want to say besides listening?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to commend you for the various agenda items that I noticed were probably picked up from the LANC and from Bank. So thank you for bringing those forward through this process. Appreciate it.
Try. Anyway, thank you. Okay. So item 4, discussion of possible action regarding the appointment of Sergio Perez as Inspector General of DWP and GHNNC recommend to DWP memorandum of understanding committee to seek meetings with the appointed on at least a quarterly basis to receive reports regarding the IG's activities. Sergio Perez was appointed, I guess, by the mayor to be the new Inspector General in view of what's been happening at the Department of Water and Power. The general managers got indicted, and there was a whole bunch of various miscreant behavior that has been going on. So they appointed an Inspector General who presented himself to the Memorandum of Understanding Committee as well as to LANC last week. And I've been involved a lot with the memorandum, and very rarely do we get feedback that, I don't know if you remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, there was this whole thing on Channel 2 about DWP workers who were going to bars and whatever during their time of work. And there was never a report what happened, whether these guys, anything happened, it was okay. So what I'm recommending to Granada Hills North is that it's very good we have an Inspector General, but I think from time to time we should be getting an update of what's going on. And since we have a formalized Memorandum of Understanding Committee with the Department of, so I thought that would be the instrument to use, that he would report at least quarterly to the Memorandum of Understanding Committee of what's going on.
Sid, do we know who this Sergio Perez is?
Yeah, he was, he's a lawyer. He had worked with the Ethics Committee in the past. He gave his bio when he talked, so maybe Glenn knows more. Maybe Glenn has more memory of his bio than I do. But he sounds like he had a background in politics and ethics with the Ethics Committee, things like that. So I thought he had appropriate credentials for doing this.
It sounds like a good start.
So Brian,
do we know who he's loyal to or not loyal to, or do we have a reasonable expectation that he's going to be an honest and fair individual in evaluation?
Well, I don't think we have a choice. He's the one who's appointed.
You're right. We don't have a choice, but just
I should say he sounded reasonable, but to me, I'm very gullible. A lot of people sound reasonable to me. That just may disappoint me later on. What can I say?
Is he a lawyer?
He's a lawyer. Yeah.
Well, that's a good. So he knows his way around the city, perhaps. I hope.
Apparently he does. He worked with the Ethics Commission. He complained about the Ethics Commission in a sense. He said he didn't have enough staff. Apparently he's going to get more staff, more help here to carry out his job. And he sounded like he had ideas of really meeting with the general manager on a timely basis.
Well, Sid, I would personally, you've written it up as a discussion and possible action, and my position on this would be initially to be a wait and see, watch what happens, and see if anything develops that we are positive of or negative about, and take an action later rather than now. And the only action we could take is one of support.
what I would really recommend is that we support the appointment that he had at least a quarterly basis of reports. I think that's something we really have to stress.
Well, I think if the things came up that they would go to him and we'd expect a report back in a timely fashion. I think he may come to a quarterly meeting, say he has nothing to report or whatever, but I think there should be a regular contact with this guy on an information basis as well as action basis.
Well, is there a motion to consider?
Yeah, the motion is that we recommend to the Department of Water and Power MAU committee to ask the part of the agreement be that the Inspector General report on a quarterly basis to the MOU.
At least a quarterly basis. We don't want to tie him down to just a quarter. If he feels it important, he can do more reports. So we should say a minimum.
I think I said at least. It's in the notion there. At least.
Oh, okay.
I can support that kind of a motion. However, history tells us that GHNNC has a long history of nobody showing up when it comes to public officials of any kind.
Well, that's the MOU. They have there's a memorandum. They have to interact with us, report to us what's going on within 90 days, all kinds of things. Whether they've always done it is another question, but that's part of the memorandum. So I think this should be added to the memorandum of understanding. Any further discussion? Hearing both sides.
I would vote for it.
Brian, yay or nay?
I'm a positive at this point.
Okay, I'm yay. So that's 3-0. So that will be the resolution that goes to the board. Okay. Okay. Item number 5 is I'm on the programming committee of the Congress of Neighborhood Councils, and we're in the process of looking for workshops and presentations, and whether there's any presentations or workshops here from the members of the committee that they thought.
You got nothing from me.
Okay, nothing from Brian. What about you, Ralph?
I don't have anything further to say.
Okay, all right. So no suggestions. I won't. I have one suggestion that I'm putting forward, and that has to be in regard to mandatory training or education. And I'd like to hear a panel discuss why mandatory training is a part of the responsibility of mandatory up and beyond the Brown Act is designated for members of councils. I like to know legally where that stands. Whether I'll get a workshop on that, I don't know, but that's what I'm working on right now, is to understand the whole concept of mandatory training for board members. What's the history of that? Where does it come from? That an elected official has to have some sort of mandatory training. Nowhere in the Constitution is there saying anything about the president or vice president members of Congress that they have to have certain mandatory trainings. So I don't know why we as elected officials have to go through a mandatory training beyond the Brown Act. So that's just my concept. I'll move ahead on my own on that. Okay.
That ought to get some legal discussion.
Well, it might not even be accepted. So I'm just, I don't have anybody to discuss it to, who's a lawyer, all kinds of things that who would have any gravitas to talk about the legality of it. I don't think it's constitutional personally, but I'm not a constitutional lawyer. And things are done anyway. Okay, let's move on to item number 6.
I had my hand up.
Oh, you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I can't tell on the phone if it's up or down, but I tried to put it up. Anyway, just wanted to let you and everyone know that the deadline was extended to July 1st for the workshop proposal.
All right.
That's it.
Okay. Okay, so Brian, can you say, are there any more attendees or anything like that?
No, there is no more yet.
Okay. Item 9, discussion of possible action regarding change of name per council file 11-020-S3, change to 20-1536-S1 from budget advocates to budget advocacy and distribution of NC funding, and to oppose such action that diverts funding to budget advocates to budget advocacy and distribution of neighborhood council funding, and to oppose such action that diverts funding to the discretion of money to done. So Glenn is here. Maybe you want to make a comment on that since you're very involved in that. And Brian's on the budget.
I'll defer to Brian, and if I have anything to add, I'll add it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty much on the same plane here. This is a power play, and it is deceitful. The name is meaningless. We don't care. Nobody cares whether the name is budget advocates or budget advocacy. The issue is if a organization is to solicit funds from the NCs and the NCs decide to provide those funds to a given entity, that entity should be allowed to maintain a record of the monies that have been provided to them and be the only entity that can use those funds. And the use of those funds should be at the discretion of that entity, given that it doesn't break any city rules. So as far as I'm concerned, and I am not going to speak directly for the budget advocates, but I can say I believe the budget advocates agree with me that we should oppose any name change unless they define it better so that the amount of funds that are provided are specifically earmarked for who they were provided to. So that's in a nutshell the issue as I see it. Glenn, if you feel I have misrepresented anything, let me know.
Well, I would second that.
Glenn, any thoughts?
No, sorry, can I speak?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah, no, of course, Brian gets it right. But we're trying to, as a result of this motion, we're actually trying to do something that wasn't part of the motion, because the motion came from a request from the department. What we're trying to do is go back to the way we've been doing business for the past 10 years, which was neighborhood councils could make a contribution of their choice. And so we're trying to get maybe through this motion, through the city council motion or through the council committee, that to force Dunn to put it back on the form, or at least accept a fill-in option. So if a neighborhood council votes to contribute to the neighborhood council budget advocates or whatever entity that's been recognized that they have an option to fund, that be honored. So some neighborhood councils have added some wording like, that the city council motion be amended accordingly, something like that. But anyway, thanks.
Okay. I'm trying to get my screen. I hate to say my screen share is not working properly, so.
I don't think you want to do that right now.
Okay. All right. So I can't read the agenda. Can you read the next point, Brian?
Are we doing anything with this item?
Oh, yeah,
today?
let's have a motion. Does anybody accept it as written?
I would not be a strong supporter of changing a name just for the, I don't know who they're pleasing by changing a name.
Well, the motion was put forward by John Lee. Okay.
Well, the motion was put forward by Raquel to John Lee, and John
And
Lee
he accepted it. Okay.
accepted the motion. I would, with in order not to spend a lot of extra time to make it in our words, which we could do, we could even do that at the general meeting. But I would make the motion to accept the budget advocates' suggested CIS at this time, and then the board as a whole can decide whether they like that or they want to change some words.
So is there a CIS attached to this so we can find?
Oh, you did not get it?
No.
Okay, I'll look for it. I should have it.
Okay. All right. So we move to accept the CIS as an alternative and present that to the board regarding budget advocates.
Right.
Okay. All in favor? Ralph?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
Okay, you want to go on to 7?
Yeah, please.
Discussion and possible action regarding future format and structure of public meetings as changed by LA City Council so that residents may only participate at council and committee meetings in person, and to change the rule that persons may call in, and that LA City reopen the video connection at Van Nuys City Hall to the LA City Council meetings. I am not sure what I just read. Can you explain what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I'll try to explain as best I can. During Zoom time, there were times you could attend a meeting by a phone-in call or whatever during this period, and they're doing away that. To go to an LA City Council meeting to give testimony, it has to be done in person. Yeah. The opportunity.
Okay, yeah. I had heard that. I hadn't read it, but
So not only do you now have to go down to City Hall to give testimony, they closed down the link that used to be at Van Nuys City Hall, where people could go there and do a call in from there. The argument against City Hall is that very few people used it. There were 4 or 5 people who would sort of constantly call in from Van Nuys. But again, I just think it represents an example of the disregard of the distance the valley to City Hall has. And
I think it's an attempt, as many items right now are with the city, attempts to disengage the public from any participation in government.
so you would be supportive of allowing call-ins and Zoom conference?
Absolutely, I would think that the government as a whole would be bending over backwards to engage with the public, to find ways to help them engage, and at the same time ensure that they have the proper protocols so that any disruption can be immediately dealt with. I think the public needs to be held up to a standard of, we want you to communicate, and these kind of actions tell the public, we don't want you to communicate, we don't want to hear from you, we don't want you participating. And I'm appalled that these kind of things are even being suggested.
So you want to change any of the wording since you couldn't understand it, or anything
Well,
else?
no, it's clear enough that it's opposed to the actions that have been taken. I think at a later date, we may want to put forward some logic that says why we're doing this, but why we take our position. But at this point, this particular position, I would agree with.
Ralph?
Well, I would agree with that to really enhance that. We want to have a government that we can talk to and say what we want without having to drive all the miles down to the city hall and all the parking problems and et cetera that you have there. Going to the local, the Van Nuys unit is enough of an effort, and I think we should encourage that.
All right. We'll get a vote on that. All in favor? Brian?
In favor.
Ralph?
All in favor?
I'm in favor as well. Okay. Brian, can you do me the
Okay,
honor?
on 8, discussion and possible action regarding the rulings by Dunn and City Clerk that all board member recusals will have to be presented to the city attorney for discussion. Recommended that recusals will be based on the Brown Act. That's it, on the Brown Act. Now, since I read that, I got a couple of questions. One is, where did this come from? And where is it in the Brown Act that recusals have anything that are recusals are in any way reviewed in this fashion and given the
That's what the point is, the Brown Act, that the recusal method should be consistent in what's in the Brown Act. The Brown Act does not mention attorneys or anything like that.
and where does Dunn and the city clerk get off making actions and rulings on the NC system? Where do they get off doing that?
Apparently through the city attorney. That's my understanding.
Oh, that's not Dunn and city clerk then. That's the city attorney.
But there's,
And I don't agree with that.
so we can add that too. Dunn, city clerk and city attorney. I have no objection to that.
So what's our motion here, if we are to make one?
Our motion is the recusal should be in concert with what's in the Brown Act.
I think that recusals should be guided by the Ethics Commission, to be honest with you. The city attorney does not have, in my opinion, does not have authority to make rules, to make laws. They are an interpretation and a defense organization. They do not guide us other than to give recommendations, just as done. You know, that doesn't take any of their authority to address the law and to make the proper statements of guidance and recommendations, but I think we have to be really careful here, because this is a slippery slope. If we start giving into the idea that Dunn, city clerk, city attorney can give rulings on how the NCs function, I think that's a dangerous position to be in.
We should.
Well, that's what I was trying to say in the motion. If you want to strengthen it in some way, I adding the city attorney, but I think the spirit of the motion is that we should be bound by the Brown Act, not by independent decisions made without any authority.
Yeah, well, see, the Brown Act is a law executed by the state of California.
Right.
And we need to recognize that we have to follow laws. But
apparently the city clerk and the city attorney and Dunn doesn't recognize that concept. That's my
no, that's true. They do not. Would it be appropriate to make a motion that this committee will establish a written recommendation for the board to review and and take action on
Well,
in
you know,
opposition to this, in opposition to this idea?
you don't
I
think
would
the motion
second that.
says that? The
Because I
motion,
don't think we're prepared to write a whole dissertation right now on this.
I think the motion stands for itself, that we oppose the actions of the city attorney, the Dunn and the city clerk in how they're enforcing. Any enforcement should be done in accordance with the Brown Act. That's
Okay, so we reject any idea that Dunn, city clerk, and city attorney may uh, may give rulings on how the NCs are to function with regards to recusals.
well, any action they take has to be in accordance with the law. I don't think they're working with the law. So
That's what the city attorney is supposed to rule on, just that, and not make law.
That's my point. Is they are supposed to interpret and provide guidance as to how to how to abide by the law, and I'm not sure how you write this up because we have we have rulings by Dunn and rulings by a city clerk and rulings by the city attorney, I guess, all around recusals, and I don't think any of them have the right to make rulings. I think they have the right to address it and to request a review of how the NCs are conducting themselves with regards to the Brown Act and any other city laws.
We're almost into a constitutional thing where you have separation of powers, where members of the judiciary don't make laws, they enforce laws
Right.
or interpret laws. You know, and I think that's what we have to state. That's, you know, we have a
you see what they've done is,
separation of powers.
let me interrupt for a sec. What these officials they've interrupted in the functioning of the neighborhood councils by making rulings post hoc a decision. Okay, that they disallowed a decision because they didn't agree that on their own that your recusal was inappropriate. It had to go through the city attorney first. Okay, and
How about the GHNNC demands that any rulings on recusals outside the Brown Act be referred to the City Council?
Well, now you're taking it away from the attorney.
Damn right. The attorneys
Okay.
are only supposed to interpret what the City Council and the legislatures approve. They don't write rules.
so give me that again, Brian.
The GHNNC demands that any decisions regarding recusals be referred to the City Council
For discussion and yes.
for discussion and approval.
That's gonna, but then again, they can delay a decision until all that's done. They could say, well, you can't make a decision until all that's decided. That's,
Well, it depends on how you're challenged.
Well, I think that the first challenge has to be who has authority to make a recusal. Does the party have that is in a conflict of interest or a suspected conflict of interest have the right to make his own recusal, or does the state or the city have the right to determine how that recusal is to be made? But it's one or the other. It can't be done and city clerk and city attorney and Brown Act, etc. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Everybody can come up with their own ideas as to how a recusal is supposed to happen. And as it stands right now, personal opinion, they are taking the concept of conflict of interest way over the hill here. Conflict of interest is a personal gain. It is not, oh well, we might be doing something good for the community, and I will look good to the community. I mean, this is crazy stuff that we're into here. The conflict of interest laws and rules that I have seen for the last 50 years are all based on personal benefit. And it's usually personal benefit monetarily. So they've
Brian,
just bastardized the whole concept of conflict of interest.
So Brian, help me understand what they did to you in your recusal.
Well, I don't know that my issue is appropriate for me to discuss at this point, but I can tell you that
Okay, yeah, maybe you're right.
that they have taken issues of conflict of interest and placed their own opinion as to what a conflict of interest is. And again, a law is a law is a law is a law. If the definition of conflict of interest is indeed personal gain, then they have to stop somewhere and say, if you don't have personal gain, then you are not in conflict of interest. And again, I think this goes to the Ethics Commission. That's the one that's going to determine whether or not there truly is a conflict of interest.
Yeah, see what I say I'm doing right now is just basically interfering with the function of making a decision. Just
without a doubt, it's doing that.
So is there a way
doing it right now?
Okay, let's assume that I do something I should have recused myself from. Okay, and I didn't do that. Yeah, under the Brown Act, they can come back and overturn or make the money go back or whatever. That's already there. That they can overturn a decision, whatever.
Well, if the departments of the city are trying to ensure that nobody ever makes a mistake, they're going about it the wrong way, and that's what you're talking about.
Well, I don't think that's what the goal is.
Well, it sure sounds like that's what they're trying to do. It's either that or it's nefarious, and I'd rather think that it's that. The fact is, you got 3 city attorneys, 1 assigned to the NCs for us, and that's not enough to support 99 NCs. Just isn't there. They're going to make more mistakes than the NCs are. I hate to say it, but I think these are all power plays. And I'm not sure that there isn't a conflict of interest with regards to
what they're doing.
The city clerk and the city attorney making their decisions based on the way they are defining conflict of interest.
I'll tell you,
You're trying to
trying to figure out how we can have neighborhood councils function, and
I think it's very clear, Sid, that if a neighborhood council does something that it is inappropriate, that they can taint the issue and thereby not be able to address the issue at all. I think that's very clear. Now, if that's clear, the NC members need to understand that. So there is a level of training that should be available to every member, and they should be aware of exactly how serious this situation is and not gloss over it in some sort of ethics review that simply says you may be in conflict of interest and seek the city attorney's advice.
Yeah, but you say that about every council member too.
Look, the NCs have to take responsibility for their errors as well. Everybody is responsible to some level at some point. And if an NC does the wrong thing, then fine. They should be held accountable. Just as the city clerk or Dunn or the mayor or city council or anybody else.
Well, that's why you're going back to the Brown Act.
Exactly. So we're guided by the Brown Act, and the members need to understand it clearly. And as long as they understand it, then the NCs take responsibility for when they fail to function properly. And many of them do. Many of the NCs will allow somebody to be in a part of a discussion and a vote because they don't understand. They don't understand how to address the issue of conflict of interest.
But the problem here, as I see it, is they're turning back people who've recused themselves. They've identified a conflict. They've recused themselves from that, and they're saying that's not enough. Okay.
Well, that's where the power play is coming in.
Okay.
They are not allowing the NC to do its job. They are interceding in the actual
maybe
operation of the NC.
Maybe we should look at that aspect of it. Say that whenever a recusal is made by a board member regarding a decision, it may only be overturned by the ethics commission. How about that?
I would buy that.
I agree with that.
You know,
That's a short and simple position.
that to me, in these cases, people have recused themselves, acted in good faith, and then they were told they should consult. Why would you need to consult the city attorney?
There is no better faith than a person who sits back and says, look, I think I have a conflict of interest. I'm recusing myself. There is nothing that I can come up with that is in any better handling of one's personal responsibility than that. Now,
That's all I'm saying.
unfortunately, I am aware of someone who recused themselves from a vote or two in discussion only to make an example. That also should not be allowed. You should not be allowed to use the issue of recusal to your benefit. And that's what happened with somebody, and I was deeply saddened by that and chewed this individual out for it. But the fact is, we have to be responsible parties. We have to use the tools at our disposal appropriately, and we cannot do that if we aren't given the proper guidance and respect to do our job. And that's where we have a falling out here. So I would support your motion, Sid, that should a board member recuse himself, that if there is any question of propriety, that it be adjudicated by the Ethics Commission.
That sounds.
I would second that.
So, recusal. All right. Okay, I'll support that.
You have the recording on, so we can always go back over the wording later on.
Yeah, I can support that. So, Ralph, you're supporting,
Yes, I support that.
and Brian,
Yep.
and Sid. That's 3. Okay. So recusal has to be overturned or a decision by the ethics committee. Okay.
Right. That's the basic point.
What's the next one?
So 9, item 9, discussion and possible action regarding SB 1273 and recommend a letter to be sent to our councilman to oppose the actions proposed in SB 1273 of not reporting campus threats of violence to police authorities, and that copies of the letter be sent to members of LAUSD and assembly members representing GHNNC. So what are we talking about here?
Well, the Senate bill, I forget the number there in front of you, says,
1273.
let's say there's somebody on campus who makes a threat, like gonna blow up the school, okay? Under the law right now, they have to be reported to the police. The Senate bill says they cannot report any of these threats because they feel it's unequitable. There's more threats coming from more threat reports because of a person. Their argument is based on marginalized people are being reported more often than non-marginalized people. So the fact that a threat has been made may mean a danger should not be reported because it's unfair. That's the argument in the Senate bill. It hasn't gone to the Assembly yet. Is my
That's not the support of Gaston.
Hmm?
It's like support of Gaston.
I'm just saying it's so basically my understanding we cannot connect directly to our assembly people as another ruling by the city attorney. We're only supposed to give advice to our councilmen. That's my understanding. So that's why I framed it this way, that we write a letter to John Lee, he can contact the assembly people and tell them he opposes it. And we can send a copy of our letter that we sent to John Lee to the assembly people. Doesn't mean we're giving them advice. We're giving them information about our action. So,
I understand. I agree. I personally don't want to get into a discussion on this because I'd just be pissed off. But the logic today that our elected officials are using is way over my head. I can't figure it out. Cannot do it. The most dangerous individuals are those who are usually in a lower socioeconomic status. Let's use it that way. And if that is a if that is a defense from being dealt with harshly, then we're all in big trouble. So I would agree with what you're saying here. Send a letter to councilman and have the council hopefully weigh in on this, and hopefully in a position that we take, which is not, I assume, not to support this bill.
no. Ralph?
I agree with that.
Okay. Since I'm the one that proposed it, I'll agree with it. Okay. All in favor? Thank you. What's
I'm
the
in
next
favor.
one? Brian, can you?
Okay, so number 10 is discussion and possible action regarding Council File 22-0002-S87 regarding reparations.
Okay, there's a bill in Congress trying to outline reparations to be made, and our city council has already gone in support of that concept.
Do I get reparations for the fact that the Irish were?
No,
Why not? We were marginalized. We were told to get out. My ancestors were told, no, don't apply for a job here, go away, etc., etc. Why can't I get reparations?
no, I don't want to go into that. I'll go into that at the next meeting.
Well, we should just apply.
No, but
We
you
should-
know what I'm saying.
I understand completely. I agree with you. The point is the city council has already gone on record. We as a neighborhood council, are we in favor of this concept of reparations? Okay.
We can still tell them we don't agree with it.
You think our neighborhood council would support that?
To be honest with you, I would have a hard time voting to take an action on this issue because I fear that our council would be in favor of this without question, and
Would be in favor? You think so?
would be in favor, not to oppose this. They would
You'd be
definitely
supporting the bill.
support the bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would not support it.
No, I wouldn't either, but the council as a whole, I'm sure, would support it.
Well, I'm sorry, but we're not supposed to look at what the council would do, what people in our area feel would be done.
Look, this is one of those issues when I talk to people about materiality. There is no um, there is no way to change people's feelings, and people will feel that this is important. And the materiality of it is, it's just money. It's all it is. So it's almost not worthy of being addressed, and to let the chips fall where they will.
Yeah, but we
Okay,
should
so
be the ones that pay for it.
okay, I don't think
That's a tired story, Ralph. I agree with you. We're not the only ones, and the people do pay for it. I agree, but we have spent in the last year $6 trillion as a country on what? Same crap. So it's just money, and they'll learn their lesson if the country goes into a deep recession. So you
Well, it
can't
never,
do anything about it.
so,
You can't fight this issue.
yes, you can.
Okay.
so Ralph is in favor, you're against, and I'm on the fence here, even though it's my motion. I move we bring it up at the next meeting. That's
Okay.
how's that?
So you wanna postpone this one?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on.
All right. That takes us to 11, which is discussion and possible action regarding upgrading of parks.
Right. Did I give the bill number or something there?
The bill number is no. You don't give the bill number.
Okay, there's a discussion
Oh
that
yeah, you do. It's 2022 22-0605.
so they're allocating money to the parks. So I just wanted to know if our parks had passed this on to our beautification committee or parks committee to pass that on.
Is this the one that Karen was saying this isn't something for us to deal with? It's something for beautification or something?
Well, again, it's one of the things that was sent out by Gibson. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the legislative actions. So I took it off that. I didn't know whether I don't remember acting on it. So I took it on that we should look at it. And if Karen feels it should go to that committee, I have no problem with that.
Well, if we're talking about upgrading parks, we'd really have to read the ordinance to see the motion to see what it says. But I mean, all the parks could use upgrading all the time. There's never a point in time. The question is, what upgrading? Is
Well,
this
they're collecting
major,
information
minor?
from around the city on the various parks and what they need. So I thought it would be important for our neighborhood to put into our into the
You know what this sounds to me? All they're doing is getting information for another bond issue.
Yeah, it sounds like it because, to be honest with you, unless you know exactly what the upgrading is, you're going to have a lot of NCs looking to support their park and not your park. So, I don't know where this is going, but
no, my understanding as I read it is that there's money already allocated in the budget for this upgrade. This is not bond money.
it's allocated to Park and Rec.
Yeah.
No, they're a unique department, so they get money from everywhere.
That's my understanding. I may have misread the bill, but that was my understanding. But I'll take Karen's suggestion. We'll pass it on to them.
I'd be more concerned with how they're utilizing their money rather than whether or not this is a good idea or a bad idea to support upgrading parks.
Well, I think we should pass it on to.
Okay.
Okay, what's
So
the next?
then 12, discussion and possible action regarding LAUSD to limit police on-campus services and to ask for councilmen to write a letter supporting reconsidering the Schmerlson-McKenna resolution regarding improvement of police protection on campus. There's a lot said there and nothing specific. LAUSD has rejected police on campus.
That's the Schmerlson McKenna.
Yeah.
They rejected that, their motion to fund the police. So my recommendation is that it's already been passed against, asking John Lee to contact the LAUSD to ask them to reconsider in view of all the violence that's going on in schools. The whole argument again is equity. Um, so the motion is
Equity
that we ask John
in
Lee
the way of
to.
safety.
Hmm?
Equity is getting in the way of safety,
No,
and
depends.
that should never happen.
No, maybe. My feeling is this motion basically just asks John Lee to write a letter to the LAUSC saying that we oppose what they did and ask them to reconsider.
I have no problem with that.
Ralph?
I go along with that. Write a letter.
Okay. I'll put that letter in. Okay, next.
13 is discussion and possible action regarding lobbying activity at NC meetings and requesting that all presenters will offer a disclaimer regarding any possible conflict prior to any testimony involving a vote of the NC board. CF 22-0560. This has become a big issue. There seems to be more than one occasion where people will come in and voice their position and not disclose that they are the lawyer, not disclose that they are a lobbyist, try to hide the fact that, well, I'm not really a lobbyist because I'm not getting paid and crap like that. So I'm not sure in my mind whether a person being paid to lobby is any bigger threat than a person that's not being paid to lobby, or a person who is not identifying themselves as a lobbyist as opposed to a person who does. I think it's the discussion that is the issue, and if the members of the NCs are so gullible that they will listen to somebody and accept them blindly, regardless, I think that's the NC's problem.
We've had that happen.
Yeah, but what's the difference if he's a paid lobbyist or not? Now, I'm not in favor. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in favor of people not disclosing their position. I'm not. I'm
Can
just
you read
saying.
my recommendation again? Okay. I don't think I just talked about lobbyists.
Discussion and possible action regarding lobbying activity at NC meetings and requesting that all presenters will offer a disclaimer regarding any possible conflict prior to any testimony. I assume that's the testimony of the lobbyist, involving a vote of the NC board. So,
See, the way I worded that, I mentioned lobbying, but it's basically I'm asking everyone to give a disclaimer.
yeah,
Okay.
no, I do hear that. I mean, I see that. It may not be clear to everybody, but
So let me give my experience. I used to be a delegate to the American Medical Association, and we'd be voting on resolutions. Anytime we would go to the microphone to give testimony, we had to give a disclaimer. Let's say they were talking about group practice. I would have to say, I work at Kaiser Permanente. I'd have to give a disclaimer, even though the bill may not have anything to do with my personal position, but I may be, people should know that I work in a group practice while I'm giving testimony. So it's not that I was lobbying for anything, but anyone who got up to the microphone, basically it's like a recusal. They would have to give a disclaimer.
well, Sid, it brings up a good thought in my mind. The fact is, and I have not been in favor of this for a long time, actually ever. The NCs as a whole have a propensity to bring board members on. I mean, they don't go out and seek them, but members apply who are themselves members of 501c3s, of nonprofits. In one case, Canoga Park has 5 or 6 of those individuals. They are all members of 501c3s. In one case, one of them is a paid employee of a 501c3. And the issue is, to me, is if you have 5 people on a board and they're all members of 501c3s, every time a request for funds to a 501c3 comes up, guess who's going to vote for it? The members of the 501c3s. They're going to support each other in general. Now, that may
See,
not be
that's where,
always
to me,
true,
where
but
a
in general.
recusal would be in order.
So therefore, having them disclose each time they discuss and give testimony that they are a 501c3 member, regardless of whether it's that particular organization that they're talking about, is probably a very good idea.
I think that's a different kettle of fish than that's board members. Really, that would mean a recusal, okay, as opposed to.
No, you wouldn't have to recuse yourself as a 501c3 member of a organization that is not the one with an NPG right now. If there's 4
Well,
other,
that's a good point. That should be another
but it should
discussion about board
it should be
members making a
disclosed.
disclaimer rather than a recusal, but a disclaimer. That's
Yeah.
a recusal and disclaimer. Okay, right now I'm trying to address the lobbyists and stuff like that. So
Well, I think everybody's a lobbyist who
of
brings
course,
testimony
but
for something.
but some are paid, some are good lobbyists, and some are bad lobbyists. The ones who are paid
Exactly.
well tend to be good lobbyists. Because they don't make any money or bad. I'm a bad lobbyist. What can I tell you?
Well, there you go.
What can I say? I very get persuade my issues.
Well, see, that's the point I was making, is that it's not whether you get paid or not. It's are you lobbying? Well, if you are in favor of something and you're a stakeholder, you're lobbying. I don't care who you are. The question is, are you lobbying fairly, or are you being deceitful? And that's something that only the board can determine by asking questions. And that assumes that you are knowledgeable enough to be able to ask the questions that will pull that out. And that's not going to happen in most NCs.
Well, I don't know if that's practical. That's we barely want any discussion with people giving public testimony, but it would be good that they gave a disclaimer. That's my opinion.
I mean, I'm a member of a 501c3, and I can say, and I have recused myself on occasion because we donate money to various organizations. We've donated money to parks, etc., and to schools. I don't see anything wrong by saying I am a member of so and so.
I don't see anything wrong. I think it's appropriate to mention who you are and why you're talking and what your affiliations are. I don't see a problem with that. I do see a problem with recusing yourself because you are dealing with a nonprofit that is donating money or services or support to an organization that you, as your NC, your nonprofit, also deal with. I don't see a problem with that at all.
I think
as long as it's disclosed. But for a second, Ralph, but that does not create a conflict of interest, because you personally are not getting any value out of any of that.
Correct. But it doesn't hurt me to say I am a member of.
No, I think it's appropriate to say that. It's appropriate to let people know where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you say
Under
it's
the
off.
Brown Act, you don't have to give your name,
Well, that's true. You don't have to, but
but it doesn't say you can't make a disclaimer. Okay,
well, the Brown Act says you don't have to. It doesn't say you should not.
all
It
right.
just says you don't have to. If you want to stay anonymous, you can stay anonymous as an individual.
Well, if you're a member of the board, they know who you are.
Well, of course, but the public doesn't, and the public needs to appreciate it also.
That would be a different motion than this one. This
It
one
would
is,
be, I agree.
yeah. This one has to do with disclaimers of people giving testimony. And
So let's just say I would agree to supporting the idea of anyone giving testimony provide any pertinent information regarding their associations.
okay, so you're in favor as written?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. And Ralph?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, I agree. What, is there anything left?
There is committee member announcements.
Oh. Well, I'm taking off this week. I'm going to my sister's 90th birthday in Toronto. Now that I don't have to come back and be tested for COVID back. Before I couldn't get back into the country unless I tested for COVID, but now I don't have to test. So I put it off to the last minute. 2 weeks ago, they changed the rules. So
2 weeks from now, they're going to change them again. Don't worry.
they'll probably change it when I'm in Canada. They'll say,
There you go.
Or you can act like an illegal alien and just come across.
well, that's the original plan had in mind. I was going to fly to Detroit and rent a car and drive over the border in Windsor. And if you make a land crossing, you don't have to get a testing unless you're a truck driver, which is interesting. But
When I used to fly to Canada, when I used to go to Canada on business, in those days, back in the 70s, there was nothing. You crossed that border and you didn't even know it, and nobody else knew it.
that's true. Those were the good old days.
Yeah.
You talk about that. We had a cottage on the St. Clair River, and across the river from us was the Potawatomi Indian Reservation of Canada.
Mhm.
And I mean, we went across the river and we stopped there and we went to Canada, etc., with our boats, etc. Never was a problem. At least we never thought that was a problem. Nowadays, every time you go and put a foot down in Canada, you're supposed to report that.
Anyway, so that's my announcement. Thank you.
All right. Very good. I don't have any announcements, I don't think. If I
Okay.
do, I'll remember them after the meeting's over.
Ralph, any announcements?
None they should make.
Okay, so I'm gonna adjourn the meeting at 8:15. Not bad. We got through a lot of
There's
business.
another call-in user. We never found out who that was. Just came in. Gone.
Oh,
All right. Never mind.
okay. Stop recording. Okay, the recording's off. Gentlemen, I really appreciate your work. Some of it is very tricky, what we do in our committee. I think there's a lot of things going on in the politics of this world that three old white guys don't go along with.
Well, Glenn has his hand up. Glenn, you have something to say?
I don't see it. Glenn? I can't see it. Let me check here.
Well, you can take down your agenda. We didn't use
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I'm out of that. I'm looking for his hand. You want to speak?
Off the record.
Glenn, I don't think he took down his hand.
He did for a while.
Glenn, you want to say anything?
Are you there?
Okay, now I allow to talk. You want to talk? Allow to one ask to
Oh.
unmute.
Okay, now I'm unmuted.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. So, yeah, my call got dropped and I rejoined. I actually had my hand up during the municipal lobbying ordinance, but I don't mind just, if I off the record, just making a comment, just FYI on that.
Sure.
The Ethics Commission did make a recommendation for revisions on the municipal lobbying ordinance. That's the council file, and it's now been forwarded to City Council. The last two times that they had revisions, the City Council never acted on them. So just moving something through the neighborhood councils to try to get City Council to consider them is a good thing. One of the revisions did relate to neighborhood councils, which included exactly what you're talking about, and that is any paid lobbyist would need to disclose verbally if they are speaking to neighborhood councils that they were a paid lobbyist. Now, the definition of paid lobbyists for nonprofits is set at $2 million annual budget. If you're below that, you don't have to disclose that you work for a nonprofit. If it's $2 million and above, you do. Some folks think, anyway, that's just matter of factly what the proposal is. And that's not a change, I don't think, from the existing threshold. So whatever that's worth, just the more neighborhood councils that can weigh in on the municipal lobbying ordinance to urge to hopefully get City Council to look at it, because it may not be perfect, but it's a step forward, especially as it relates to neighborhood councils. Thank you.
I'm just wondering whether a neighborhood council itself could set a rule like that.
If a neighborhood council what?
I'm just wondering if a neighborhood council by itself could set a rule like that.
Yeah. I would think. Well,
Hmm?
probably they could.
You know, why couldn't a
They wouldn't
neighborhood
have
council?
they wouldn't have the enforcement behind it that the Ethics Commission has very serious
Yeah, well,
enforcement
Yeah.
no,
tools.
but I think it would be interesting if the chairman or the president said at each meeting, all people giving testimony are expected to give a disclaimer. Okay.
Yeah, good question. Excellent.
I don't know.
We could try it. We could try it and see what happens.
Yeah, we ought to bring that up. Put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. Anything else, Glenn?
That's it. Thank you very much.
No problem. Well, I'm gonna close down the meeting then, unless people want to. Okay, so I'm gonna end. Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks a lot. Good meeting.
Bye-bye.